Please.
Is Putin flexing his muscles for another Cold War with the West?
I think he certainly is, and it's for internal reasons as well as external. But I think the news today is showing that NATO and its partners are not going to let him flex his muscles alone, and we will remind him that we are there. I think I'm extremely concerned about what Putin and Russia are doing in Syria at the moment, which is a form of that flexing of the muscles. I'm a trustee of UNICEF, and I'm horrified by the bombing of the schools in Idlib today, which, if it was deliberate, is a war crime. There is no other word for it.
And I echo what was said a moment ago about Aleppo. The number and the extent of civilian casualties in schools and hospitals in the war-torn area, with the growing evidence that this could be deliberate acts by the Russians and the Syrians, absolutely needs to be fully investigated, fully looked into, and we have to stand up and call it out every single time.
What do you understand by a Cold War, if that's what you say that he's flexing his muscles for?
Well, I say he's flexing his muscles. I hope we're not going to a Cold War, but I think at the moment the real concern is about what's happening in places like Syria. But there have been land grabs elsewhere in the world. But Syria is the focus, and we must be clear about what's happening there and be very loud about the standards that we believe in.
The woman at the back there, go back.
I'm pretty sick and tired of Russia being put into a position of the enemy, as if we are the good guys and they are the bad guys. Let's not forget, what started all this shit in the world was the Iraq War, okay? That started power vacuums. We had to go into Libya.
I'm really sorry.
Dethrone Saddam Hussein, dethrone Gaddafi. What's happened there? We've got ISIS now. We've got IS.
Where there's evidence from independent bodies, including well-renowned charities on the ground, about deliberately targeting civilians and children in schools and hospitals, we can't put the blame anywhere else than on those that are carrying out now.
What did you do in Iraq?
I understand the need that some of our politicians feel to actually go and do something about it, but our reaction to it and our actions should be very, very carefully thought out, because we have a track record of going into terrible situations and making them even worse.
I hold no brief for Putin at all. He's running a country that's based on gangster capitalism, and clearly what he's done in Syria is a terrible crime, and they're bombers, and he needs to be excoriated for it. But I want to make three points. First of all, it's a very complex problem, that region, and Russia sees Syria as its only ally, and it sees the West making allies all the way round, and so feels isolated, and so it's not surprising that Russia wants to get involved. I'm not defending it, I'm saying that's the realpolitik of it. Secondly, there is no moral high ground. What we did in Iraq, we used chemical weapons to the kids in Fallujah, and there are now deformed babies being born because of what we and the US did. So we have no moral high ground to point the finger. And if we speak of war crimes, what went on in Gaza? There were war crimes across that region, and we can't be partial and just say this is the war crime. There were war crimes committed by the West and by the West's allies. Right. So we have no moral high ground.
Greg Clark.
And finally, can I say very quickly?
Well, you made 3 points.
Very quickly, the United Nations is the only body that can act. We have to live by the rule of law. We can't be vigilantes anymore. It has to be by the rule of law. And if the Security Council gets blocked, I suggest we should go to the General Assembly and build a coalition there, maybe of countries from the south, certainly not led by the US. Because they're not trusted.
We think Putin is flexing his muscles, as he put it, for another Cold War, i.e. deliberately trying to set up a Cold War between
I don't know, but it's in... I desperately hope that's not the case, because it's in no one's interest to go back to those terrible times, and we need to do everything that we can collectively in the UN, across Europe, to make sure there are consequences for going against what the behaviour that everyone would want to see.